All right, I'll call to order this meeting of the Canyon City Historic Preservation Commission. Cindy, will you do roll call, please?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, Chris.
I am here.
Lester.
I am here.
Oh, good. Mike is here.
Yep.
Rich. Okay, Jim.
I'm here.
Cindy is here, and Mildred.
Yes,
Yay, welcome, Mildred.
thank you.
All right, has everyone had a chance to look over our agenda and the minutes from our last meeting? Is there any discussion? If not, I will now entertain a motion to approve the agenda and the meetings from last minute.
I move to approve last month's meeting agenda minutes.
Do I hear a second?
A second.
Cindy, will you do roll call? I noticed Rich just hopped on too.
Oh, awesome. Great. Welcome, Rich. Chris.
Yes.
Lester. Mike.
Yes.
Yes.
Rich.
Yes.
Yes.
Cindy. Oh, Jim.
Yes.
Cindy is a yes, and Mildred.
Yes,
Motion carries. Now I will, yeah, my speaker's still on. Now I'll open the meeting for the public hearing. Lisa, can you present us with the staff report?
Yes, let me share my screen real quick. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, this is a public hearing for the designation of the building at 305 Main Street as a local historic structure pursuant to the city's municipal code, section 1230-090. The building is named Murray's Saloon. It's also been called Murray's Billiard Hall and Saloon, or Murray's Hall. The building is located at 305 Main in Lot 7 in Block 16 of the original plat of Canyon City. The current owner is 305 Main LLC. The notice has been mailed to the owner of the property, and a sign has been posted at the property at least 15 days prior to this public hearing. The building was originally built sometime between 1865 to 1872. The original owner was Bernard Miller. The architect or builder is still unknown, but the structure has not moved from its original location. Murray's Saloon is a two-story 19th century commercial structure with Italianate elements. The building style is defined by its flat roof, storefront design, the decorative wide bracketed cornice molding at the top of the building's front facade, and the three segmental arch windows with ornamental keystones and stone sills below. The double hung windows each have a transom above them. The building also has a storefront cornice with dentils just below the second floor windows. The central entrance to the building is inset with angled walls leading to the tall double doors. On each side of the entrance are two narrow painted cast iron columns with decorative capitals and two large plate glass windows with tip plates underneath the sills. Excuse me. The building is originally stone or adobe with a painted brick veneer. Murray's Saloon has seen a few minor changes during its long history. Around 1878, a portico was added across the front of the building, but was later removed. The exterior staircase, excuse me, we'll go back one. The exterior staircase along the east wall of the building was visible in the 1883 Sanborn insurance map, but by 1908, the staircase was likely enclosed and becomes part of the building's footprint. The 1883 Sanborn insurance map of Kansas City also shows a two-story structure along the alley to the north that is connected to the back of the saloon by a one-story, 12-foot wide corridor. A small water closet was added to that corridor sometime before 1895. The two original brick columns that flanked the entrance of the building were eventually replaced with cast iron columns with shaped bases, likely between 1895 to 1905. The original bracketed cornice of the building was replaced also in the early 1900s with a more decorative bracketed cornice with starburst ornaments, dentils, and corner brackets topped with short finials. The window transom over the central entrance was painted over multiple times. By 1900, the proprietor of the saloon, William B. Knox, occupied the top floor of the building with his wife, and the saloon porter also boarded in the building in 1900, according to census records. Through the decades, the upstairs continued to be either living quarters and or storage. The current exterior appearance of the building has not altered very much from the early 1900s, except for paint and the occasional awnings. The current owners of the building intend to restore, as needed, the columns on the building's facade. Murray's Billiard Hall and Saloon is one of the oldest commercial buildings still standing in Canyon City, if not the oldest, with only minor to moderate historical alterations. The building was built in the mid-1860s and exemplifies commercial Italianate architecture from the late 1800s. The saloon is named after Bernard Murray, who owned and operated the establishment roughly from 1870 to about 1895. Murray was an early settler to Canyon City and served on the town's board of trustees in 1873 and 1874. He also was selected to serve as a delegate to the Territorial Convention in 1872. Besides being a saloon and billiard hall on the first floor, the second floor of Murray's Hall originally served the community as a public meeting space for both social and political affairs. According to an article in the Canyon City Times dated August 1st, 1872, a general Republican convention to nominate county and precinct officers was scheduled for August 17th at Murray's Hall. Likewise, Murray's Hall hosted a town caucus to elect town officers in March of 1877. In 1874 and in 1875, the Fremont County Commission rented the hall for district court proceedings. Judge Moses Hallett was the presiding judge at that time. Judge Moses Hallett became Chief Justice of the Territory of Colorado in 1866 and was reappointed by President Ulysses S. Grant in 1870 and again in 1874. Community concerts, theater, and other social events were also held on the second floor of this building. The Canyon City Social Club even hosted a social hop at the hall in January 1874, according to the Canyon City Times. A handbill donated to the museum in 1930 advertises a public meeting at Murray's Hall scheduled for October 8, 1879. And an ad printed in Binkley's and Hartwell's book, Southern Colorado, Historical Description of Fremont and Custer Counties, published an ad extolling Murray's Billiard Hall and Saloon as the only first-class resort in the city, serving the choicest wines, liquors, and cigars. Murray's Hall is also stated in many secondary sources as being the location of where the town of Canyon City was officially incorporated in April 1872. However, upon extensive research in the museum's archives and at the Fremont County Clerk and Recorder's Office, staff has not been able to locate that primary source for that information. The primary sources found consist of articles published in the Canyon City Times newspaper from March and April of 1872 and the Board of County Commissioners of Fremont County minutes dated January 1st through June 1st of 1872. The newspapers imply another possible location for this meeting on the incorporation of Canyon City. However, the lack of primary source information regarding the town's incorporation does not and should not diminish in any way the historical significance of this property to the community. In 1893, Murray sold the property to Frank Bingley and Robert Lewis. The building continued to function as the saloon under the management of William Knox until 1904. In 1905, the Jockey Club Saloon operated the building for about a year. From 1908 to the present, the building functioned as a secondhand store, a bicycle, motorcycle repair shop, a grocery store, a cabinet shop, an upholstery shop, and an appliance store, and an antique store, just to name a few. Under these findings of fact, this structure meets the criteria for designating as listed in the city's ordinance. The original building was constructed between 1865 and 1870, making it significantly older than 50 years old. The property was originally owned by a trustee of the town of Canyon City and a Republican delegate for the Colorado Territorial Republican Convention. The property was used as a meeting place for the town board of trustees and as a courtroom for the U.S. District Court and the 3rd Territorial District Court of the Territory of Colorado. The property was used as a saloon, residence, and secondhand store, bicycle shop, and grocery store, among other uses throughout the time. The property is one of the oldest buildings constructed in commercial buildings constructed in Canyon City, with the architectural elements reflecting the commercial Italianate style. As this is a public meeting, staff recommends the Historic Preservation Commission cite these findings as facts as stated in the staff report, the application form, and the city's ordinance, explaining the commission's jurisdiction to hold a public meeting on this request. Staff recommends the Historic Preservation Commission vote to support Resolution 1 of Series 2022, recommending City Council to approve Murray Saloon located at 305 Main Street be designated as a local historic structure. Excuse me. That concludes my report. I am happy to answer any questions you may have. And the owner of the property, Brian, is also here in my office to answer any questions that you may have directed towards him.
Thank you, Lisa, for putting that together. I did, and Brian as well. I love hearing about these buildings when we have one come before our commission. Is there any questions or discussion, comments from the commission?
Just a quick question. Are there any definitive plans for the future of the building? Is this primarily to sustain the structure currently the way it is, or do you have some other plans in mind?
Currently, this is Brian Bassett speaking. We plans would be to keep it in this historical significant state as it is. We run the antique store. We've had it 15 years, something like that, 15 years. We haven't owned it for that long. We rented it for a few years before we actually bought it, I believe, in 2008. So we're still at 14 years. So anyway, it's to keep it in the state. We've done some work on the inside. We plan absolutely no changes on the exterior of the building outside of there's maintenance type of issues. these guys do what they're doing down at the St. Cloud's kind of intriguing to see if that could bring that old brick back the way it is. I wanted to stop by there and see what the heck they're using, because that's gonna look kind of neat at the end of the day. But we do have some stucco issues on the side of the building, some previous that water's gotten underneath that we need to fix. And we already done some chinking on the back stone building. It's all in good shape, re-roofed and looking good. We had it inspected for a loan just about a little over a year ago, and it passed with really good colors. We replaced the rear staircase shortly thereafter, and there's some minor foundation issues we need to take care of underneath. Typical electrical oddball things that every old building has, but I mean, there's no knob and tube left in it or anything of that nature. So it's structurally sound. It's, I don't know if you realize, but we do use the upstairs as an Airbnb. There are 3 one-bedroom apartments, so it gets great exposure to people coming into town, and it's very popular in that regard, as well as the antique store has been very popular. Any business that can survive on our main street for as long as we have like that has done a pretty darn good job. And we've managed to keep it through hook and crook open and doing its thing. So we enjoy and appreciate the building. We know we are just its guardians, and we'll continue to do so for as long as possible.
Any
Well, I'd like-
other?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. How did you deal with that exterior stairway on the side when it comes to your deed? It's a common problem. How did you handle that?
Absolutely is, and honestly, we deal with it because we also own the Charter Cable TV building that we share some, what would you say, combined space with the building next to us. Because honestly, originally we had bought just the small building just to the east of this building. We had 307 Main as well. We sold that to Farmers Insurance, I believe it is, just a little over about a year ago last June, to Mandy Reed and her husband Josh. And that came up in the title, and we all agreed that that was a cutout that, and I think Lisa actually mentioned it in one of her statements, that it has access to the upstairs. So, you know, like you have an easement, it acts just as an easement in the title format. So, and Mandy agreed to it. It was questioned. Everybody went to bat, and that's what we came up with. And so, I mean, it cleared title. Mandy bought it. She's perfectly happy in there. She has done an amazing job restoring 307 Main, which is another neat little building that I occupied with my computer shop for a number of years. So yeah, we bought 307 originally for the antique store, and we quickly outgrew it and ended up working with Drew Eberhard to get into this building, and migrated into it. And then I kind of migrated my computer shop from downtown by the Owl, I think where the Democratic headquarters is. And then we were next door to the, what's the furniture shop name? We were in one of Fremont Bank's Main Street edifices there. And then we moved on down to where the computer shop was at 307, which my wife then took over 305 as her antique store, Clock Tower Antiques from then on. Kind of went hand in hand with the clock tower being built there, and we named it that basically for that significance.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any more comments from the commission?
I think it's great to finally have the building, assuming we make the designation, designated as a historic structure in Canyon City, since it wasn't included in the downtown historic district.
Hmm.
Is it not included?
No, it's not.
No? Okay.
Nope. the boundary for the historic downtown cuts off in the middle of the block after the McClure Strathmore.
Any more comments from the commission? I don't know if we have anyone else from the public here for public comments, but okay. Well, with that, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I guess we need to know the verbiage that we need to use for this.
Yeah, there was a recommended motion sent in a second email with the revised.
It is on the staff report at the very end, recommended motion.
I didn't print that one, Jim, so I'm going to let you or someone else.
It's number 1 for 2022, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll take a stab at it. I don't have it with me either. So Chris, I'm in your boat. But I would like to present a motion, Mr. Chairman, for the acceptance of resolution number 1, series 2022 as a recommendation to the city commission or city council based on the staff's reports of findings to include this in the as a historic structure for the city of Canyon City. Is that pretty close?
That was great.
That was good. Do I hear a second?
I can do that second.
All right, Cindy, roll call.
Chris,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Cindy is a yes, and Mildred.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries.
Thank you.
So yeah, I guess on to the next agenda item, subcommittee reports. The first would be historical context and survey subcommittee.
So the subcommittee for the historical context and survey, they have been progressing right along, having meetings on a regular basis, going through different neighborhoods down. I think Red has been completed for the most part. There's a group that are working on obtaining information from the assessor's records and sort of coalescing all that information that is gathered into our files so we can get a better idea of the trends in different styles that were being done or being constructed through the different neighborhoods. And Millie has joined on that committee.
And for the Education and Outreach Subcommittee, I don't personally have an update. After the last meeting, Lester expressed an interest in becoming involved in this group as well. So hopefully we'll be able to get rolling and take a more active approach.
I did reach out to History Colorado, Lindsay, the preservation planner for the CLG coordinator. She had suggested doing some of the things that we had already listed in Jim's plan and taking opportunities as they arise through this year, since we're celebrating our sesquicentennial, the community coffee clubs and conversation that we're planning on doing, starting up again, hopefully tomorrow, is a great opportunity to get people's stories about specific neighborhoods, and we'll do that throughout the year. Another opportunity is hopefully going to be at involving the high school class that's doing the history of Colorado, and that will probably be towards May. And another opportunity will hopefully come up in November, and arranging and organizing a walking tour of downtown and historic buildings. So there's a couple of different opportunities that we can do throughout the year and getting the word out.
All right, so I guess or if there are any other comments or questions, we can move on to agenda item 6, the Saving Places Conference reports.
So these are for the people who attended the Saving Places Conference to report on what workshops they've attended, what feedback that you want to share with the rest of the commission. And I also encourage all 3 of you that attended to submit a written report to me regarding the ones that you have attended, as well as the primary takeaways that you got from attending the conference that I can submit to History Colorado for reimbursement.
Does anybody want to start?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. All right. Well, I went to the conference in person. Yeah, it definitely a good experience. It was neat to be surrounded by so many people with kind of common goals and you know, a lot of architects, planners, people from different cities, jurisdictions. Let's see, I attended the Fremont County National Bank Hidden Treasure Talk, which is really neat to see our community represented at this conference. And I'm already familiar quite a bit with that project. One thing I learned with that, I didn't realize that when TZAC purchased the property, he was not aware of what was inside. His original plan was a simple kind of carpet paint remodel. And as soon as they discovered what they had, the architect said he changed his mind and said, we need to open this up, which really converted a fairly simple, not terribly expensive project into a pretty epic undertaking. And I definitely commend them for doing that. That's pretty amazing. You see, another one that I thought was real beneficial was a design review roundtable, where there were presenters from Aspen, Boulder, Crested Butte, Denver, and Telluride. And it went so fast. It was over an hour and a half, but it just wasn't enough time to really get into how they kind of run their design reviews. And they specifically talked about when an addition would be put on a building. But it was interesting to kind of see, how they approached it. I know myself, I'm apprehensive about, telling people what they can do with their buildings and stuff like that. But it really is kind of up to us how we want to approach that. They were very different examples. Aspen, for example, they go through a minimum of 3 rounds of reviews, and it's a year-long process, and it's pretty cumbersome, I guess. The others, it wasn't as intense with their reviews. There was kind of a general theme for what they're looking for, and it was Crested Butte. she kind of broke it down to, with an addition to a historic property, the main things they're looking for is that it's subordinate to the historic structure. So it's not gonna, stand out and be more important than the historic structure. Use of a connector when possible. At least 2 of the jurisdictions they would prefer, if you were going to do an addition, have kind of like a connector piece that's 10 feet long that connects an addition, so it's obviously separate from the building. Change in material is encouraged. Jog and wall plane is encouraged. And they talked a little bit about replicative versus differentiating. And it kind of goes with a lot of wordage in ours. We don't want it to really be a carbon copy of the historic building. We want to be able to not blur what's historical and what's not, but at the same time make it complementary. And there were some good examples that kind of showed where it was real replicative, versus even Boulder. The presenter there gave an example, and I've heard they can be pretty strict with their rules. And I think he brought this on to kind of get other people's opinions on it, because it in the end, the addition was a lot more contemporary, and was very different. They incorporated some different things to make it match and make it cohesive. But yeah, overall, it was a.
Did it detract from it? Did it?
I think I'd have to see the final product. They had drawings put together. I think, and they did a real good job. So from the street, it didn't really make a huge difference. It was on the back side of it where it all kind of blended together, that I thought it was kind of choppy and weird. But that's another thing is you don't want to put it on the front of the building where it's going to be seen from Main Street. Some of the examples were corner lots, and that becomes more difficult because it's, you can see it from 2 sides. But they also, it's not like a hard cut set of rules. They all seem pretty open to working with people and trying to make things work. I think it was in Crested Butte, because of the landscape. There was an example where putting an addition on the back just wasn't possible, with the hillside going up behind it. So they were able to work out to do an addition on the front and make it work. So it's there are rules and there is an end game, but it seems like there's a conversation that needs to be had, and try to get people to, I don't know, do the right thing and make it work within the historical context of the area.
I think there's a real risk. I was talking to Mike about this. I really enjoyed that particular seminar too, especially in Canyon City, where we're just beginning to engage preservation and that approach. There's a real risk of turning a lot of people off. I think, as Mike kind of hinted, if we engage too much control over what they believe they can and cannot do to their properties, especially on the residential end of things. Obviously, communities like Aspen, Crested Butte, and Telluride have been dealing with these issues for a lot longer and a lot more in depth than we have as a community. So I think it would be good to get together and figure out what our approach will be, because I have a feeling that we will be entering a phase of this, in a much larger way than we've experienced thus far.
I also liked that roundtable. I attended the conference virtually, so I was limited by what they offered as to what I could select, but one of them was this roundtable. And I looked at it from two different perspectives. And first, as a commissioner here for the Historic Preservation Commission, but second, as a working architect and looking at the way things are being reviewed, looking at the way things are being approached from both the client's perspective and the commission's perspective or the city's perspective, and just seeing how these two groups were working together and the conversations that were being had and the solutions that were being presented. Two things that struck me. Mike took, I don't know, half a dozen of the ones I was going to mention, but one of them was a two-story bar or saloon. Started out that way, or it started out as a single story, and they added a second story, but they pulled the second story back, and then it became rooftop seating. And so there was an original historic facade, and then they needed this expansion, modern expansion. So there was some step backs from the street front. And so the different solutions that way struck me as being common ground or middle road consensus between the two parties. The second one was, and I think it might have been in Aspen, very big house to begin with, ended up being an extremely large house with its addition. But the thing that struck me was that all of the presentation documents were elevations, and I draw elevations every day, but I often have to caution people that those are two-dimensional drawings, and you never see the building in two dimensions flat, the whole building, the way you do if you stand on a street corner. And so that particular project, the guy ran out of time at the end of his presentation, but he was beginning to show some pictures of how it turned out and some of the changes they had to make. But I know that that's something that we're going to run across is proposed changes or proposals that are two-dimensional, they're flat. And so taking the time to think about them in three dimensions is, I think, important for us. Those are my comments on that.
Yeah, there was one example in Denver, I think it was, where it was a small house, and they don't like doing the pop top, but with yard size limitations, they had to go this direction. And from that elevation drawing, just like you're talking about, it looked like this big ugly addition to it. And so they actually kind of looked at it from driving down the street, like, yeah, and standing right in front of it, it looks one way, but driving from down one side of the street, it's set back enough to where other houses are blocking it, and it was kind of protected in that way. Yeah, I like that comment.
Yeah, and Lisa, I actually I sat at areas where I could get good photos of all the presentations, and I took several of the examples we're talking about. It might be cool. I can send these all to you, and it would be kind of interesting to maybe at a future meeting to just kind of show a few and talk about them where everybody can see what we're talking about, because it really, I think it's really relevant to what we'll be facing in both residential and commercial spaces in the coming decade here.
Yeah, that would be great. If you wanted to, we can continue this report at our next meeting or at a work session, whatever you would like to do.
Yeah, I'm not, I can definitely put a lot of these digitally. I just think it's really interesting to have the conversation when we can all kind of see what we're talking about. But I think that was definitely one of the most relevant and interesting roundtables or sessions at all of the whole seminar, for me at least.
Yeah, I went to one, leveraging public finance towards preservation. They talked about tax increment financing, which was interesting, but way over my head, and I have a list of bullet points to Google and try to get some kind of grasp on it. But yeah,
I might be able to help you with that, Mike.
excellent.
I can probably help with that too.
Good. I thought it would be interesting.
Yeah, Rick, there's Rick. Yeah.
I sat in the front row with just kind of the deer in the headlights look, not even really knowing what to write down.
Well, I think a lot of people in our community are the same way right now.
One of the ones that I found really also interesting, it's not directly related to preservation, but I'm really glad they had this. It was the Celebrating Main Street seminar, and that was on the second day, on Tuesday afternoon. And it really kind of made me understand, the importance of Canyon City and what Rick's been working on, Rick and Ryan both, I know, in terms of getting a Main Street coordinator and being able to engage in this kind of downtown program that I got to see examples from all over the state of the communities that were able to participate, and the attention that they started to draw to their own communities through this program was pretty mind-blowing for me anyway. I think they did such a wonderful job throughout last year, and I really see the need for Canyon City to be able to fully participate in that program, and the importance of what it will do for our downtown and the historic structures and everything. It all ties together. But I know I got Gail Langley, who was there. I got her card, and I know she had been engaging with Rick and Ryan. So I was really happy to kind of be able to see that firsthand and signal, to the group there that Canyon City really wanted to be a part of that going forward. I know we can't quite pull it off for this year. It's something that kind of starts in May, and there's a lot of pre-work for that, but I think it would be a good goal. And I told Rick already I would be willing to help out however I could in my capacity at the Chamber of Commerce to make sure that we can participate in that program, hopefully by 2023 at least.
Yeah, we're going to bring, Gail is going to be coming to town in the next, I forgot what date we're looking at, but we're looking at doing a community team workshop, I guess you could say. So we'll pull together FCTC, the Chamber, Historic Preservation Commission. I mean, it's a really good program, and it really ties everything together, historic with commercial, and
Yeah.
it's just a good program. We just cannot seem to find that Main Street program manager position yet. I mean, there's some candidates we're going to be talking to, but we haven't found the skill set yet that we're looking for. So it's a pretty unique position, and needs to understand a lot of things. It really the person really needs to understand a lot of things. So, but it'll be good to have this team building thing coming up too in the next month or so.
Right.
From the experience I had in Arizona with the Main Street program, it's an interesting balancing act between historic preservation and commercial vitality. And there's a lot of cookie cutter stuff that gets passed along. It seems like that if you're not careful, you get some consultant that comes in from somewhere else and gives you a kind of a cookie cutter version. So one of the things that's important is to have, your own objectives and goals, and figure out what works in the community, and not overlook the commercial vitality side along with stimulating historic preservation. Just an observation.
Well, internally here, we've changed our entire department system, I guess you could say, from community development to community vitality, because it's a huge focus of this City Hall, I guess you could say. And I think as long as we, as in the city, and we as in the Historic Preservation Commission and the Main Street program are working together, and we're all in sync, then I think it's going to be a lot easier. But it's going to be an education for everybody. I mean, it is an interesting balancing act. It really is. And as long as everybody's on the same page, we should be okay. But there's going to be some education from not only in all of us here, but in the community itself, in business owners. That's why this position is such a key position to fill. I mean, it's just, you really got to be able to deal with some personalities and it's going to be an interesting position. We had a good person for it, but he ended up leaving us.
Yeah, you need a Main Street manager that's not adverse to walking around and being much on the street, not hiding out in the office.
Yeah, they need to walk around. They need to be able to beat their heads against the wall all the time, and deal with frustrations and see the light at the end of the tunnel and keep working toward that.
Rick, you sound like you have experience with that.
Well,
there's a lot of dents in your office walls, I'm sure.
Sure. I took down the note on my whiteboard that said build bridges. So I think the bridges are being built now. So now it's other things.
Now we just got to maintain them.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other two seminars that I got, if nothing else, some good contacts out of, not that we don't already, but I went to one on the State Historical Fund in terms of introduction to the application, and Sarah Dahl was leading that one. She's mainly our representative in this part of the state. And so that was really interesting to learn about the process from the grant side of things. And then I was also able to meet Ariel Steele with the Tax Credit Connection up in Fort Collins. And both of these ladies indicated a willingness and enthusiastic willingness to come down to Canyon City and hold some workshops or seminars on what it takes to get grants for historic structures, and then also the tax credit follow-up. And I think, that would be something that would be really interesting down the road on this community, so that we can kind of better teach our residents, like the ones that are getting their buildings put on the register, on the various avenues then that they have to actually put together funding sources to do these projects.
All right, we're kind of running out of time. We got another meeting in about 10 minutes. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, can I make one comment real quick?
Yes.
I'd like to make one comment and dovetail it off a comment Rick made earlier about changing the focus from community development to community vitality. I use the 7 community capitals in my own practice of community development. And one of those capitals is cultural capital. And I attended a lot of the virtual sessions that had to do with indigenous peoples and indigenous historic pieces inside the state. And some of them were in Denver, and they were murals and things of that nature. But it struck me at the time that yes, there's a historic component, but that ties directly into the cultural capital of a community, and preserving the historic pieces preserves the culture. And so that's another takeaway I had.
Yeah, absolutely. We should probably move on to announcements and general announcements and discussion items.
Yes. Actually, some of you are already aware that the National Park Service has done a feasibility study on Pike National Historic Trail that will be going possibly right through Canyon City. The study is out in the public. It's 159 pages. If you're very interested in looking at that, studying the comments, they've received public comments from all over along the trail. I can forward you a link to that study. But that will probably be further down the line of when that would get officially approved as a National Historic Trail. The other item that's come up for a new webinar through the CLG portal, there will be one on March 16th at noon. And the topic will be evaluating the integrity of historic districts. And you can register for that webinar via the CLG portal. And if you need a link to that, just let me know, and I can send that to you as well. They record those webinars and they'll eventually become available on their portal. However, it takes them a little while to get them up. And that's all I have.
All right, do we have any further comment from the commission or any public comment?
Hey team, this is Cindy. Sorry, I lost connection a couple of times, so Lisa, I might be reaching out to you. I live in the black hole of the early 1900s of Canyon City, so my internet is not good. So I apologize for that. And Lisa, I'll reach out for you for a couple of details.
Okay, no problem.
All right, well, if there's no further business, I will now adjourn this meeting. Everybody stay warm out there.